We are Humble Grove. I'm Hannah Lee.
I'm Sal Davison.
And today we're here with some uni friends to talk about university, specifically art school.
I think a lot of what we talk about can probably apply to university in general, but our experience specifically comes from art school.
UK art school as well.
Yeah.
It's like vastly different from American schools, I assume. So would everyone like to introduce themselves?
My name's Tiffany Baxter, and I'm an illustrator. And yes, I went to art school with Sal and Hannah here, and also Joe and Nana.
Hi, I'm Nana Takeuchi. I'm also a student that went to university with these guys, and I do illustration on the side.
I'm Joe. I also went to art school with these guys, and I now work at the same university in the library.
So you can't criticize it too harsh.
You can't let people find you.
We were all on foundation together, and then we went on to BA illustration.
I would assume not that many people would even know what a foundation course is, so we should probably explain that. So foundation course is pretty much like first year of university for everyone, and it was a year of trying to like experiment as much as possible and see what field we want to go in. So I think the three options were communication, fine art, and graphic design. I can't remember. Textile.
I think, graphic design was part of communication.
Yeah.
Right. I can't remember.
There was like a theatre track, wasn't there, because of Wimbledon?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So like if you went to theatre, you would.
Yeah, they went.
Go to that
They
side,
actually
you
went
would
to
go
Wimbledon, didn't they?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It was fashion.
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe it was fashion.
yeah.
I don't remember.
There are a lot of choices.
They all did illustration, so we had no idea.
Just blocked out anything we were doing.
What went with everyone else.
Yeah. So once foundation was all done, we all went to the same school to do illustration. So we're all in the same course from pretty much day one. I don't think many of us have really spoken to each other till the end of foundation, maybe even later. To everyone's surprise, Sel was the last friend I've made in this group.
I think Joe was maybe the only person I really talked to during the foundation out of everyone here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't talk to you until the degree. I think, really. No offense.
It wasn't
Had rancid vibes.
So foundation was what, 2011?
11 to
Oh my god.
2011, 2012, yeah. So we all went to foundation and then went on to BA illustration, and now we've graduated.
Yeah.
Graduated 2015.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now we are here in our rooms.
6 years on.
Not able to go outside. What a world we live in.
Hey,
What a time.
I'm glad we're not at university now.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I think, there's still some benefits of being a student, so, I would like to still learn things, but at the same time...
Yeah, I'm more just in the pandemic, I wouldn't like to be in university.
Yeah.
That,
As in, it must be such a different experience.
Yeah.
One, what you were expecting would be a university experience, as well as universities themselves are probably, panicking to try and courses.
It really differs on depending what kind of course you're on. I think it happens to us when we were in at Camberwell. We would probably be. Again, it's really even local within what different people were doing within their own course. As a general illustration, at least seeing how they kind of are now, they seem to be doing okay. Simply because I think a lot of people are able to do smaller scale things. I know back in the day when we were working, I did everything sort of on my desk back in whatever accommodation I was working in. But I really do feel sorry for courses across UA up in Camberwell.
I guess
MA printing and stuff like that are just so.
Oh yeah. Kind of makes me feel like I took advantage of it a bit too much because I never went into the studio because there's never any space.
Yeah. Well, because we had during first year, we had like 80 people in the course or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was like double the amount we were supposed to have.
Yeah. I think
They're
that's
just like crammed into one small studio.
Yeah.
the case of oversubscription to a course. In our case, that's been the same since foundation. Like the whole time, it just felt like, whoa, there's too many people here, and that just kind of felt like an ongoing theme.
Which doesn't seem to change either.
I think like something I'd like to talk about would be our sort of expectations, like what we'd be getting from university, like because obviously now we're all very successful and very stable jobs.
We're all, you know, multi-millionaires and we're like philanthropists and everything. So
Introductions of like family illustrate sometimes.
because like I think, you know, we all came from different backgrounds. Like, you know, I came from a, you know, kind of American, kind of Japanese background. So like I had very set ideas of what university would be, which I guess was the reason why a lot of people dropped out of foundation, being like, this isn't what I've signed up for, goodbye kind of thing. And, you know, I was kind of close to that, to be honest, because it was like not what I was expecting at all. But I assume, you know, everyone else has different experiences as well.
I think the foundation, I didn't really know what to expect in a way. Like, I think because it's kind of sold as you're trying to figure out stuff, so it doesn't really matter. And also, my experience was a bit strange because I'm like a year older than you guys, and when I applied for our uni, they hadn't combined the courses. I just applied to Camberwell, not the CCW. And then so basically I applied for a different course than the one I ended up on because I deferred a year to have surgery. So then when I turned up, I was like, oh, this is a bit different. But
yeah, I remember speaking to you about that during foundation and you just being like, so this is very confusing to me. It's like, it must be, because even for myself, I was like, oh, like even having been explained it before going there, once you're in the course, and it was like, this is what CCW means. We've put these 3 different campuses together and what they were going to do.
We should probably explain a bit about like how UAL works. The university we went to. We all went to Camberwell, which is a specific campus of UAL, which is University of Arts London, and it's split up into several different campuses. I think.
Like 5?
See if I can remember them. LCC, London College of Communication, Wimbledon, Central St Martin's,
Chelsea,
and Camberwell,
and LCF, London College of Fashion.
Yes, and they've opened another one recently, like
really?
on the Camberwell site, like a computing campus.
Yeah, there's a creative computing unit which is at the top of the new Camberwell block. And they're normally in the. They're not. I don't know if it's as simple as it's like how you might, you know, LCC is a different college to Camberwell, like within UAL. I don't think they're technically part of UAL in that sense. They just seem to be using the building.
It's renting the space out.
It's all very strange. Like, they're very new. They moved in about 2 years ago, and like I'm kind of doing a reading list for them at the moment. And like some of the books, like on their list, are like, you know, it's all AI and like deep thinking and Python and all stuff like that. It's very different to like the standard kind of courses.
Just an entire London think tank right there.
I've been looking at their courses and they do seem interesting.
Yeah,
like there's like sort of like ethics in tech kind of courses, but trying to not get too off track anyway.
I was just thinking like, oh no, how do we go back? Yeah, so essentially those are all those different. It was sold to me as the idea that each kind of campus focuses on different aspects of the large subject that is art. And to me personally, I don't know about you guys, but I thought Camberwell was kind of like specializing in illustration.
Yeah.
It had a reputation for it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because it was similar for me, because like I applied through like a like a what do you edit the out? So I applied through like a UAL agency that was based in Japan or Tokyo, and they were like, "Oh yeah, these are all different schools within UAL." So they didn't mention CCW at all. So I thought I was going straight to Camberwell like Tiff or Nana, and I ended up in God knows where. I was like, "Where am I? What is this? Like, why am like I'm supposed to be doing illustration? Like, why am I?" Fiddling around with threads and stuff. This isn't what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. So basically for foundation year, which was meant to be that experimentation where you get to try out different disciplines I think it's like per week or per 2 weeks to turn around.
Yeah, like the first term, it was like a new thing every week, and then you kind of specialised from the second term.
I think overall people just felt really overwhelmed because one, there was this like confusion over where we were, what we were doing, and then it was like, oh, hang on, we're now in different years, and we're not messing around with clothing or pound shop items. We're now having I can't even remember what the proofs were, but yeah, I do remember. I think because in high school, sixth form, or whatever education you have prior, art is taught very differently. It's not heard, like it's less experimental, and it's more like, look at this artist and let's replicate certain aspects or characters of this style or this period of time, what kind of art they were doing. And it was a bit more kind of very rigid style of teaching, maybe.
Yeah, because
the idea is it's more experimental.
Yeah, like in the UK at least, I think for A-level art, like and even more so from previously GCSE, it's very like geared to filling in certain criteria to get the most from an exam and the coursework. I don't know what it's like now because it's been a very long time since I was at senior school doing art, but like that's very different to when you go to foundation level and it's like experimenting, but then you're still kind of doing it in a prescriptive way because you have to fit like you still have criteria, but they're more nebulous and weird, and so it's kind of hard to know what to do to fulfill them, and that they tend to have strange descriptions of like about your goals and your experimentation and stuff. That like I think if you're the kind of person who sort of knows what they want out of the project, it works against you.
I think they really want to look for a journey or a process to interview with you, because they wanted you to do like a diary, and they never wanted you to start from A and finish at B. They wanted you to go from A and go all towards all these different ideas, try this, try that, and then ultimately you ended up with something completely different from what you thought you were going to do.
I always had like a rigid way of working, so that kind of that shock to the system or working like freeform way was really quite like jarring for me, particularly in foundation. Less so as things moved on into degree, where it got a little bit like more kind of focused, a little bit more.
It depended in the degree who was teaching you at any given time, I think.
Yeah.
But
I think is it growing?
Well, yeah, I mean, just like I came from a secondary school where like art was taught in such a like appallingly bad way, which is typically what it's like in this country. Like, secondary school art's not very well taught, and the department was not funded very well. And I think it was really like one of the only kids that actually liked art, like really enjoyed it. Like there's a select few, and a few teachers kind of taught it in a sort of like engaging way, like more similarly to how it's taught in higher education, but most of it was like people saying that like awfully prescribed criteria, box ticking kind of stuff. And it was very hard to get out of that kind of space working in that way. And I think I ever did, to be honest.
Like, I think
a certain way.
Yeah, like, because I think the biggest difficulty was that, so we were taught how to make art in a very specific manner when we were in, like, sixth form A-levels or, like, IB arts that I did. And I think that kind of valued art in a way of, like, how, technically skilled you are, or, like, how, quote-unquote good you are. So in foundation, I guess everyone sort of got whiplash because everyone was creating art that they've never done before, so they don't really, they couldn't really gauge how quote unquote good they were at doing things, and then like you're not seeing everyone else's full potential because it's their first time doing things as well. So it's kind of like I don't know how to compare myself to others, or like it was just a cultural shock, I suppose.
I think a lot of us were expecting more technical guidance. Like more direct, like here are some ways that you can approach drawing in a very like here's how you use references like in a very practical way.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, and then I guess instead of that, you kind of got like, remember that one project where we went to the Barbican and we had to like draw stuff with electrical tape?
Oh yeah.
I love doing that though. Oh, that was great.
Like it's interesting, but
yeah, it's because I think I had some like now that I think back at it, it might have been good exercise, but I think I had a couple of gripes with a lot of these things because it was like this is what kids in kindergarten do. Like, why are we doing this kind of thing?
Yeah.
Well, also it's that like classic kind of joke of like, when you see those kind of what kids would do, and you're like, oh yeah, it's classic like art kids. It was just kind of, I definitely enjoyed the kind of, I get the idea of trying to get you to work outside of your sketchbook, and that idea like we were talking about. I know we're here to talk about university, but we might all be different for everyone, but classically, you kind of in secondary school you work in a sketchbook, and it's very sketchbook based, and then a final product might be a painting, but your sketchbook always feels much more stronger.
Yeah.
And I feel like foundation, all those experiments, whether they were successful or not, was an attempt to try and get you out of the sketchbook and try and work in materials that you weren't used to hopefully get you to think in different ways and trying to challenge your process. But yeah, I think we were all expecting a bit more on like a bit more nuanced teaching for it to be a bit a bit more one-on-one maybe would have helped as well, just to be like, okay, for you maybe you need to focus a bit more on observational drawing or this kind of this medium, have you used this before, and it to be a bit more bespoke in that way. And I think a lot of us were a bit left to figure it out for ourselves, and maybe not for that,
I think a lot of us were really concerned about finding work after uni and concerned about having skills that would be relevant to that work. It felt like the course wasn't really addressing giving us those skills. So like while I think the way the course is structured is good for our practice as like purely as art, it's not so useful in like the world of work.
So I think like our expectation was for it to be a bit more practical and get us into the world of work and ready, primed for a job. But it was a bit more self-indulgent and like discussions about style or what is the point in illustration, or having these kind of discussions and focusing more on the process rather than the final product meant, which they're necessary, I guess, like for you to feel more confident in your work or to not be scared to try new things. But yeah, like you were saying, if you were expecting to learn skills that would help you get employment afterwards, that probably wasn't the case with the particular course that we went for.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I think our course, like, because they always stressed, I think especially as we got on later through the degree course, how they really wanted to push how, like, illustration isn't just illustration. And, like, they really wanted to push what it could be, which I think, yeah, it's great. But they kind of, I think the course director, or basically the people who was in charge of actually putting it together as opposed to individual tutors, were kind of, they forgot that illustration is also a business, and also it is essentially a commercial and like part of art as opposed to fine art, and they didn't help anyone in that respect, really. So we had a lot of very talented artists on our course who in my opinion, I think would have been better doing a fine art course. But the illustration course housed them, which is fine. But I think at the detriment of people who actually do want to do the more commercial side, which I think maybe the course leaders almost felt they were a bit, not ashamed, but they kind of almost looked down on it.
Yeah.
They kind of tried to ignore it and sweep it under the rug.
Yeah. I feel like there was a certain culture of like, we would always feel like we had to talk about highbrow, lowbrow. And it was always like, well, illustration, you know, if it's an image that you can make again and again, then that's somehow less, I don't know, less important or less, has less feeling of art than, you know, one of the things. And there was this instant kind of value how we see things, which maybe wasn't really necessary to a necessary thing that we needed to think about during uni. I don't know.
And I feel like these things were pretty apparent with like, you know, first off, they didn't really teach us how to set ourselves up as, you know, business folk. I don't know. And I think there was like a major problem with, like, you know, for example, you would see job listings on the UAL website. And then, you know, all the fresh graduates would go there and be like, oh, I need to look for an art-related job because, you know, that's what I've been doing at uni. And then all of their job listings look for people who've had, like, 4-year experience minimum in the industry, but that's not something that we've ever had before. We're, like, you know, fresh graduates. So, like, there was no sort of, like, after graduating support sort of thing either. And, you know, that kind of, like, messed me up because there was no sort of international student or international graduate support either, so I just had to go home. But I would assume, like, plenty of other people even people who live in the UK, struggle to find a job, like any sort of illustration job, or like, if you decide to go freelance, that probably came like way later in your life as well. Like, there's no sort of immediate solution, I think.
Yeah. I think sorry, go ahead.
I think the problem partly was all that, because it's not, you know, there was that kind of like teaching on how to get your work out there, but it all came like right at the end of
it was like one lecture or something.
And that's one of the things that, as the years have gone by, I've looked back up and never really quite understood. I don't understand why it wasn't embedded from much earlier in the 3 years. I don't understand why it.
Well, that's why I was talking earlier about low brow, high brow, because it's almost that kind of behaviour makes you feel like for you to sell your work is low brow. Does that make sense? That's why they don't spend so much time or so many lectures on how to make you as an artist like a viable, you know, business situation. Like, you, even though you just come out of uni, you know what programs we use, you know you're ready for the industry.
I think the problem was the remit of the course was incredibly broad, and that's good, but it meant that a lot of people doing it had wildly different expectations of what they wanted out of it. Lots of people like us, we like had wanted to have some kind of, you know, practical application of what we were learning. I don't know if everyone on that course did, and that's fine. And I think the course actually reflected that, and that it was very kind of nebulous into, you know, where you go and how you apply it. And people like that did want to apply it, I think, felt quite disappointed by the end of it, that it was just kind of like, all right then, that's a lot, fine.
Yeah. Like, I think, you know, it sort of also felt like, you know, people who weren't already well established or like have not sold their own art in maybe like first year or second year were kind of, you know, bound to fail. Not maybe bound to fail, but like it was kind of just like, okay, we got your tuition, that's cool, goodbye, kind of thing.
I do think that there is, with regards to like the highbrow, lowbrow thing, there is a kind of a connection to class there. Like how it's sort of, you know, it's looked down, and it's, you know, it's a bit crass to be like marketing yourself. Whereas, like, you know, if you already have the connections, you don't need to focus so much on marketing yourself, so you can perfect your practice. And I think, I don't know, I was so surprised by, not to be mean, but like the amount of like by like middle class, like upper middle class people at the university, like who just like obviously had never had any troubles in their lives, and like we're just doing these things because like they could afford to do it, you know, like they know that like even if they don't do art ever again, they'll be secure in getting a job after university.
And like, you know, don't really mean to throw shade or anything at all, but like this was a major issue with international students, because a lot of them, like, their parents would move to the UK for their own business, and their children had to go to university somewhere, so it kind of felt like they were just like, oh, you know, art school seems easy, I'm just gonna, you know, submit a portfolio, and, you know, my parents can pay the tuition, so it's fine. And that was, you know, pretty apparent, I suppose. And like, again, you know, I don't want to be mean or anything, so I'll stop here. But that's just kind of how it felt like sometimes.
It's and like, you know, it's not that those people shouldn't be able to do art courses or anything like that. I think, you know, you should be able to do an art course just because you have an interest in it, and even if you don't want to do anything with it, like career-wise. I think it's just that the course seemed to favour those people.
I mean, all this stuff about, you know, applying your work in the real world and getting yourself out there and making these connections, that's really difficult to do, and that is a skill in itself. And for someone like me, who's generally like, I don't like the idea of doing that, because that's my, like, you know, my personality. I don't naturally want to put my stuff out there. It comes as quite an alien thing. I wish I could do it, and to an extent, to a level, it's my fault for not being proactive enough. But I thought when you're at a course and you're being taught something, there should be more support to teach people how to be like that, and they feel the 11th hour, and the worst possible time to be trying to teach it as well, like right at the end when you're at the end of the term.
You're trying to finish off all your work.
And it's like, and here's all like the ways you could go out, and it's just way too late. And for certain people, just need to start to think that way a lot earlier.
I mean, I think also, to be honest, from first, like my, like, I wasn't very clear at all about what I wanted to get out of uni. So being proactive is so important, and you could see that in our class. The people who kind of knew what they wanted to get from the course, so they knew, you know, to talk to the tutors, what conversations to have, because they're like, I'm interested in this, and they knew what they like. I'm like, that's great. That's what we should. That's how I wish I was. But I was just. I think the main word is overwhelmed. You know, it's the first time you're living away from your family. You're not with your normal friend group or your normal like support unit. So for many of you, when you go to uni, you move out, and sometimes you move very far away. So you're trying to figure out who you are, what's going on, how to settle down, and like look after yourself. And then it's just all this deadlines, and you're not really given time to breathe and be like, what do you want? Especially if you have an idea in the first place. So
I was thinking about this earlier. Like, I almost wonder if like going into higher education art, as soon as you come out of, you know, sixth form or secondary school, is a particularly good idea.
I think it depends on the individual, though.
I know, but like I think for a lot of people, you're so young, you are a bit stupid. You don't really know.
Again, I think it's something individual. I think I personally
because now, as an older person, I know a lot more like laser focused what I would have wanted answered. And you know, to ask Tel's question, like, oh, actually, like, when I really think about it, in my heart of hearts, I actually don't know what I wanted out of it, and that's a really like, sort of childish way to think. But I think we were thinking that way because we were very young.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you don't know what you wanted from that course, you weren't going to get it because no one is there waiting to go out their way to find out what you specifically want. And you know, that was my responsibility.
The thing is, I think maybe like a different kind of like university, like outside of art school, if you were going to a different university doing a completely different degree, maybe it's okay to have that level of uncertainty because there's very likely some level of job at the end of it, and there's not usually in art school. So I think that combination of that setting and being someone who doesn't really know what to do is quite a precarious one.
Yeah, and like I feel like by the end of third year, like the final year, is sort of when we finally start to be in, like, kind of get in terms with ourselves and like kind of understand ourselves a bit more, and then suddenly it's like, oh, jobs.
Yeah.
Like I need to look for jobs now. Also, I said the F word again. I'm sorry.
You might need to repeat what you were saying there. So
yeah. What was I saying?
I think I did say earlier. I might need to bleep that.
Yeah, just don't edit it out. Just bleep it.
Just bleep it. Yeah.
Put like a thing over. It's fine.
Oopsie.
So yeah, so like that's like, you know, the thing, because there was so, as everyone said, there was so little time to sort of figure ourselves out in a way where we can like establish ourselves. And, you know, again, like this all came later down the line. Like Stella and I did a lot of like marketing stuff for games. Like we would go to events and be like, play our game, please, like play our demo, and then I'm sure, you know, you three have done like things like that as well, and trying to like, you know, sell your art in ways that or like trying to find your own ways to do it because uni didn't teach that to you.
I think any like marketing stuff and like social media side of things and selling my art, none of that came from anything I learned at uni. Like I did there are lessons I took away from uni, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't in that side. And I think I felt they're very into it's nice that at uni, and that seemed like if you couldn't make it with them and get their attention and that those kind of people, then that seemed like the only option, and then any other way of getting your art out there as an illustrator wasn't even mentioned.
I'm sure it's the same in every industry, but it really felt like there was this like generational gap and like this kind of like old guard of the industry. And like, I don't know, like it felt like, not that this is any fault of the tutors, but like they didn't seem to be sort of like up to date with like how you would promote yourself. You know, there were a few small lectures, but there were never anything about like social media, which is like a huge part of like of promoting yourself.
Yeah, like I get probably all my work off Twitter.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Like that never came up as like anything about social media presence. I mean, I guess it was a longish time ago now, but Twitter was still pretty big by the time we were leaving uni.
Yeah, because like it would have been super beneficial for us if we did still know about that by that time, because, you know, Twitter was big, Instagram was big, and, you know, maybe they teach that now, I have no idea. But what we got was like people from the industry would come in to do talks, but only to talk about their work, but not about how to get jobs or like how to make a good portfolio.
It never felt like you formed any connections to those industries that they were from. Maybe you did if you were like extremely proactive, but
if anyone
that would require you to do that.
Got any connections, it's luck. I think anyone who's done well post uni, like immediate, like who as soon as they left the course, I think they've got it because they happen to be seen by someone at the degree show.
Yeah,
that's my understanding of it.
Or they were just, you know, simply extremely rich, so they didn't have to care.
But I think it was what we're saying about the course not wanting to kind of acknowledge illustration's commercial side. I think as a whole, our college weirdly like it's known for its illustration. Like, that's why I wanted to go there, is because I knew it had the history of the illustration teaching. But I feel one thing that kind of exemplified how the college kind of used that practice was, do you remember, maybe, I can't remember if we all went, there was that mini like awards ceremony in like the foyer of the college at the end of the year, in third year, and they had awards for like different people in the across courses. There were several fine art awards and like photography and stuff. There wasn't a single one for illustration.
I do remember.
Oh,
that.
no wonder I
Yeah,
don't know about this.
I do remember.
I remember that like outcome. Do not remember going to this thing.
It was just like just like a random like people standing around in the lobby. Basically, it wasn't like on a stage or anything. But I was just like, I was waiting for them to say, and the so and so award for something in illustration.
Yeah.
And like, I wasn't expecting to get anything, but I was expecting someone to get something.
Yeah. Illustration snubbed at the Oscars.
And it's just like
I don't
it's the
remember
most
this.
like, I think it's the most oversubscribed course
Yeah.
as far as I knew. Like, it's the most popular thing, but they don't kind of, it's like you're getting probably most of your money from your illustrators, and you don't want to like acknowledge them.
At the time that we were studying, it felt like the course was severely underfunded.
Yeah.
Like, we were supposed to have a Riso printer, but I'm pretty sure that was broken the entire course.
Yeah.
Because it was working the year before we started, I think.
Yeah.
They did a fair, and I could see the Risograph themes. I was like, oh, nice, this is so cool. But yeah, I mean, we were there for 2 years, and none of us had a permanent desk space.
No.
Sorry, you're doing illustration, no? Even if you're doing digital work, like even if the body of your work is digital, you still need a desk space, surely. And you surely want your students to come into these studios and build like a studio culture, and like, I mean, one of the main reasons we go to uni is to like build like meaningful connections with like-minded people your age, or not your age, but I mean people who are going to go out into the world of work as you are, you know, so you kind of already have a network. That wasn't going to happen if you don't have your own desk space. It's crazy. I mean, that's my biggest, I'm trying to also think about all the positive things at uni, because there were.
We'll do a bit
Those can come later.
We're just like, oh, you know, still go to art school.
I'm so sorry.
I think like the underfunding, like, it made me kind of sad, because there are some really brilliant tutors, and I felt they really wanted to do a lot more, but they couldn't, because they literally did not have the money, and they tried their best within their restrictions, but at the end of the day, they can't make money grow to, you know, pay their own wages, or to get more materials, or to fix a Riso machine.
I don't think any of our frustrations come from the tutors.
No, like they were trying their best.
Like we know where the money went to as well. That was the problem. Like, is, you know, we had like a half, you know, broken down school, Risograph, like Riso prints are not working, no desk space, and then what does Central St. Martin's get? A bloody fountain and like plastic trees, literal fake plastic trees.
Yeah, visits from every website. Sorry, not website, celebrity.
Yeah, you know, Kanye West visited Central St. Martin's. Oh, good for them.
Yeah.
Can we have some space, please? Like,
please fix up Riso printer.
We just want to.
And like the South colleges were like the sort of like the three ugly sisters that UAL didn't want us to acknowledge or something, and then it's like, oh, we'll just merge all their foundation courses together and put all this money to our executives and to our new flashy building at CSM. Like,
I mean, that's the funny thing about UAL is people calling it University of the Arts London, but it's this bizarre conglomerate of so many things. When you've got a budget to spend, and you obviously, because you're so myriad sites across London, will get spent in what looks like quite a uneven way, because it's just that there's so many sites.
Yeah, I think it would be good to talk about education as a business and how that is terrible for students.
Yeah.
Because it's weird how, like, I don't know, it seemed like there was I don't know, some sort of political, like, behind the scenes stuff going on with like how some campuses were getting money funneled into them and some weren't.
Yeah.
And I always think it's a weird energy when this place of education suddenly has to kind of put their model into a business plan situation where it's like, okay, so then it becomes about numbers and less about the individual. And you can kind of see that, like we briefly spoke about international students. Not to say that international students were just there because of their money, of course not. But at times when you had students who never turned up and they weren't supposed to be international students, but I just mean there were so many students and the tutors also looked overwhelmed. So there's a miscommunication there. If a tutor is like, okay, this is going to be a problem, and they're probably trying their best to solve it, why aren't the people higher than that able to be like, okay, let's cap it. Let's really cap it at this number of people so that the students we have can have, quality.
They don't. This is the thing. They don't want to cap it though. The problem is this sort of very rapid growth that UAL side with, like you're saying, new campuses, things like that. And there is a good side to growing in that way. Like having these new campuses is nice. And I mean, I guess I'm approaching this with my library background, but it's actually very nice. Like new libraries getting built. Like there's a new LCC, there's a new LCF, and they're going to get like astonishingly huge, nice new libraries. And that's great. Like anywhere outside of universities, that's just not happening. Like libraries are going extinct. There is a good side to it, but they could have afforded themselves some breathing room with this expansion. I think where like Camberwell, the space for the station was so tiny. We were bursting at the seams. New Camberwell has a lot more space, but they didn't allow themselves any sort of breathing room because they then filled the space they'd gained with more rooms by then making the courses even bigger than they were. And so they have the same problems, I think, that we now have, that we had back in the day. And it's this, I think, rapid expansion which they need to work it out better.
What I'm confused about is if unis are becoming more like businesses, your advertisement are your graduates and the students come through your doors, no? So isn't it in their best interest to make sure that they're investing the right amount of time and making sure that students have access to all the materials that they need, like a rice like that they have access to all these things that they normally wouldn't be able to. I mean, that's why they're there at uni, surely, so that they can try out, lino printing, clay, ceramics, and all these different things that they wouldn't really be able to. That's why your students are there, and to ensure that flow of students that want to go to your school continue, you need to make sure that your students are able to thrive in that environment. Like unis, I feel like provide you a little safe bubble. While we were at uni, I had no idea what was going on in the outside world. In third year, when things were closed, like when they were like, okay, and you're going to be graduating and going into the real world, that was the first time I was like, oh, I'm severely unprepared for the next phase of life. So yeah, like I just feel like if you are going to be a business, then I feel like you should be investing correctly, which is into your students and your tutors and your facilities.
Yeah, but at the moment, if you build it, they will come. Kind of mentality. Building, basically.
And I think they will always have success stories. People who manage despite the odds, or have loads of money and connections in the first place. That they can cherry pick as like examples. This is why our university is so good, because look at this person, they're super famous, they're wealthy, but if you look behind the scenes, they're probably super wealthy beforehand.
Yeah, they were going to do well anyway. Like UAL magic that they were able to.
Go for it.
All right. I think one of the briefs that really stood out while we were on the course was that one brief where we had to work with different industries or different working with the BBC, working with other like visual production companies and stuff. And I feel like that was really, really good, and that kind of like really helped build our portfolio and help us sort of like, that was pretty much the closest we ever had to like trying to, you know, establish ourselves in a certain way. And I feel like they, you know, UAL definitely has a lot of connections to, you know, a lot of companies, so they could have definitely pushed for that, but they didn't, and instead, you know, they funneled money into other things that they didn't really need. And it was like, you know, very sort of superficial advertisement rather than like grow, like letting your students grow and trying to like let them be let all of them be successful so that they can all advertise your school. It just seems very backwards what they were doing.
Yeah, and I think with that module, it varied greatly depending on what brief you took. Like I did the one for the Tate Gallery, and they didn't give us any feedback at all.
Yeah,
I remember that one. It was just like turn up and just hand it into an office at uni, and I was just like, okay, no feedback afterwards. Like, what was it for? And so it was really like if you picked a good brief or not. Yeah, because
I did the BBC one, and that one was really good. Like, and I still get the odd royalties from it.
Successful.
Pays for itself.
Like that was genuinely really interesting, and like getting to go to the BBC and like see how that kind of project would all go on, and you know, you get like proper like talks with people on the production team about what they wanted and all that. So like more of that would have been good, for the projects.
Right, I think more courses like that.
Well, I think what we're all saying is we would have preferred. Do you remember there was another course called the FDA?
FDA.
And that was more like you know, I think you would be working like in industries, I think, and you know, it was a bit more.
It's a bit more practically minded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that sounds like maybe something more that we would think more interested in. However, I think they've gotten rid of that course.
Yeah,
oh, really?
It's like 2-year courses
now as well. Anymore, but then it
might be.
No, I think it's gone.
Yeah.
They've gotten rid of quite a few courses, I think, in general.
Yeah, and again, I think that's because I didn't know what I wanted from uni, so that's why I listened to it. And the kind of general feel was like, I don't know, I think it was a teacher or something who was doing a talk about it, and was kind of a bit like looking down on the FDA course. So obviously, I as a 18-year-old probably looked at them and was like, that adult has totally told me that course isn't good. So I won't look at the facts. I would just nod and smile and say, that course is probably not good. I'll go for the other one.
Yeah, I definitely remember being slightly snobby, like, FDA, 2 years, like, that's not a real degree. Like, I know what I want to do. I want to be a foundation and get a degree of 3 years and then go on and do work. Like,
I was going to say that in terms of the question of you know, education and business, and in relation to our experience when we were there, it's worth remembering we were the first year to start paying the full brand. Well, if you're a home student at least, which was interesting because I think it added an extra level of scrutiny from the student's point of view.
Yeah, because UK UK student tuition bumped up like 300%, was it?
Yeah. 3 times.
So 9,000 for the whole
year. Yeah. I remember so many conversations to everyone on the call was just like, where is our money going?
Yeah.
So many different occasions.
And that's still an issue.
Yeah, in fact, students would speak like that. The amount of times, you know, on the front desk, you get the occasional, I'm paying for this, I'm paying so much kind of thing. And I hate getting that, but to an extent, it's kind of right. I mean, it's not the right way of putting it across, but it's put this quite unpleasant sense of value to everything. Things are better now, but because in a weird way, we were sort of that, you know, guinea pig year where the year above us was getting the exact same experience but paying 3 times as less. And it's just unpleasant. It created a feeling that shouldn't be there in an educational
Definitely.
setting.
I think that's why we're able to talk about the idea of uni and business, like, is such in the forefront of our conversation, is because that was the kind of tone we went into. Yeah, when we were going into uni, that was kind of like on our mind constantly. And for international students, it wasn't it like every year, kind of, it was a different price.
Went up, didn't it?
Yeah.
I think for maybe two, like, I think we had a tuition bump when, like, the UK student tuition bump happened.
Right.
I can't super remember how much. I think we were paying like maybe 3,000 quid extra, maybe even more. And you know, I was like super privileged to have people pay for my tuition, and you know, I don't need student loans, so you know, I'm very relieved on that front. Extremely privileged, but at the same time, like, that would have put off so many people. But
Yeah.
the thing is, like, the university knows that these people can't afford them, like, afford the tuition and, you know, keep learning. And, you know, they still want a lot of international people from the course because, A, they bring in more money, B, not much aftercare is needed, because usually they're, like, either rich or well established enough to just, like, go off somewhere else and start their own life. And then you get other people, like me, I suppose, like, where I depended on art school to, like, try to set up some sort of life for me, but, you know, they didn't. I tried to look for jobs, but they didn't have any jobs. Like, other job listings sucked. Like, nothing actually worked, so it was kind of just like, oh, so you just want me here so I can pay you, and once I've paid everything, I just have to leave. Okay, that makes sense.
That's an awful experience, but awful way to feel. Like, you're, because the cool-off period, like, after you graduate, how many months were you allowed to stay there until they were like, hey, cool, bye?
Was it 3 months, I think?
I feel like the turnaround was ridiculously short because it was shorter over time.
Theresa May basically
She was trying to get it shorter
to 10 days.
Yeah.
So
This is ridiculous.
Yeah, it was because the Tories won the election, and if they haven't, I could have stayed for a year. But since Labour lost, it was 3 months, and then if Theresa May really pushed for it, it would have been 10 days.
Yeah.
10 days. What are you meant to do in 10 days? You're just
that's
not
like
packing 10
to,
days.
Like, pack.
diploma thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I threw the hat in the air and now I've got to go home. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think it's also interesting, like, slight tangent, but going what Sel was saying earlier about the relationship between the intake of students in class. This system is basically restricting who can go from a class point of view, meaning that affluent or middle class people are the only people going to art school right now. And that's fine, but it wasn't always like that. And I don't understand now how, if you're working class, how the hell you even entertain the idea of going. And that is such a big problem because back in, decades ago when it wasn't like that, and to an extent it was free, you had people from all classes and the working class in particular going to work and they could make art. It's like in the 90s you got all these like Britpop artists.
Yeah, and like you get better art because of it,
And now we're getting very kind of boring, very stifled.
Exactly, it just means it's so homogenous, right? If you're only if the people who feel secure enough to go into a subject that doesn't have a foreseeable job at the end, you're just gonna have similar background, similar kind of situation or outlook. And that will just mean a homogenous tone.
And it's like what Tiff was saying earlier, how, if we were put on It's Nice That, then we've made it. But the thing about It's Nice That is that, there's a lot of similar art styles, and you definitely know what sort of art they favor and what sort of art they don't. And, a lot of us have made art that doesn't really favor them. And, we've not made it on their top cover yet. Maybe someday, who knows? But like,
it's nice that. Would you like to feature No Longer Home? Wink,
wink, wink. But like, that's the thing, because even while where we were studying, like all the tutors were really trying to push for our own art styles and like trying to figure out what was best for us and like trying to foster our ideas and stuff. But in the end, all we saw on front covers and like people who came in for talks had very similar art styles.
Yeah.
And again, maybe all of this is different now. I have no idea, but 10 years ago, I suppose, things were different.
Yeah.
I do feel like maybe more so foundation than uni. But I do feel like the tutors themselves weren't ready for the influx of international students or students that maybe English wasn't their first language because there were so many communication issues with international students despite paying so much. I felt like weren't really looked after. There was compulsory one English lesson per week that international students could go to. But that was kind of it. And with essays, they were just left alone. And it's just kind of like the arrogance of the power as a business. You can treat your clients like this, and it doesn't affect the number of students.
This rapid growth thing, like the afterthought of like how you actually like support a huge influx of international students. It's just that it's an afterthought that comes later. I think they are better now, from what I hear, but it's such a huge problem.
I think it definitely didn't help that CCW. I think when we were on it, that was like the first year they were doing it, right? Was it?
Yeah, we were like the guinea pigs for that.
You really were. Like the double whammy.
I know, you could feel it. You could feel the
They didn't know what they were doing.
It was like, oh, this is the first time this facility has ever been used. Yeah.
Yeah, and just like watching tutors fight because they had no idea what they were doing, and it was just kind of like, okay, I feel really bad.
This is slightly tangential, but I was looking at Google Earth around the CCW campus, and like you can walk around the building. It's really weird. But that like temp hut that's in like the car park area.
Oh yeah.
Like MA Illustration was in there at one point.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
What?
No, you're right.
The illustration hut.
I think until like a few years ago, like really recently, I think. Those huts are definitely still there.
You shall be
Ridiculous.
I always found that was really weird, like with the way that in the last few years, Camberwell's like as soon as we left, actually, like got all that massive development. Why they kind of didn't touch that huge car park? There's nothing going on there. Like, it's just concrete, and the most they've done is like put a few like these mobile blocks there. Very weird. I always wondered if there was some kind of like planning thing.
Could it be because that building is quite old, so there might be a listing problem?
Oh,
it's very strange.
But we've never even seen a single car there.
Like it's those like weird mobile blocks and like general artistic detritus.
Yeah.
You know, like
art pieces throughout history.
Yeah.
So those weird like round wooden things you wrap wire around.
Yeah.
Just like, look how nature does to your art.
Something I would really like us to talk about is sort of how the course got us, or didn't manage to get us involved with like the like local community, and how I feel on reflection it should have been better at getting us a bit more politically involved.
Yeah. I mean,
because I feel like it's sort of like I kind of got the impression that the university itself sort of didn't really want anything to do with politics, whether it be like politics in business or like like art school bureaucracy or anything. They kind of just tried to hide that aspect from us, I suppose, and like because there'd be like strikes and stuff, and teachers would be on strike, or not teachers, tutors would be on strike, but they wouldn't directly tell us that, and it sort of felt like they're trying so hard for students not go on strike. Or like them.
Was a couple of times when students went on strike, they faked a gas leak and got everyone out of the building and just like shut the doors and didn't let us back in for the day.
Really?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you saying this, and I was like, I have no memory
I
of
think
this
it happened
at
like
all.
at another campus at the same time. It's just like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
really? 2 simultaneous gas leaks? Interesting.
I think it was Chelsea, if I'm remembering correctly. But
Yeah.
yeah, because like people were like checking on the UAL website and stuff, and like or Twitter or something, and they're like, "There's another gas leak somewhere else," and we're like, "Okay, we're not buying this."
Yeah, I did not believe that.
Wow.
Because,
Awesome.
yeah, I guess because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, protesting students is dangerous for them staying wealthy up at the top.
Oh, yeah.
With all the fees there, with all their £9,000 every year they're keeping from us. Like, they don't want us. Well, not us because we're not there anymore, but they don't want students causing them issues. So they try and keep things as quiet as possible. And I think particularly at Camberwell, it's being in South London. I think if students got involved in the local politics, it would be a lot more. Well, it wouldn't be conservative to say the least.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
getting involved with the more like working class local.
Yeah, because I think it would have been super easy for us to be radicalized if there were like even like fringe groups, and I assume there were, and they probably just didn't have enough reach. But like if we didn't know about these groups, if they even did exist, then like this is a weird way of putting it, but like we would have had so much power over some of the executives, I suppose, and like trying to set things straight. And it's not really our job to do this because there are people who need to sort these things out, but at the same time it's like if no one's going to make a move, then who's going to make a move? But at the same time we didn't know how to organize anything because we weren't taught these things.
In the past, students have had this reputation for like being very politically charged, and it feels like we've really lost that, though it does feel like to some degree that might be coming back, like Goldsmiths, which is an art school that has a certain reputation. There are students now that are doing like good things for the local community, especially like there was this thing that I talked about with Nana when I did an interview with her. There was I won't explain it in too much detail, but basically there was this artist, a student there that his piece was to dump a load of carrots outside the front of the campus, and like these carrots were not supposed to be touched and just left to stay there. And this is a short while into the start of the pandemic, in a borough that is extremely poor, and it's such a huge waste of food. But some of the students like organized this thing where they took the carrots and they made them into cakes and other sorts of things, and sold them and gave that money to local charities. And I believe they're still doing that kind of work now.
Yeah, it's like this isn't really direct work, but I remember I can't remember if it was a TikTok or just like a Twitter post of a girl from Camberwell, could have been an illustration course. I think making fun of working class people. I think working in a Mackey's or something.
That was. I'm not going to name the artist, but I know who you mean. I can't remember if it was from Camberwell or another campus. I
have a feeling it was Camberwell. Maybe I'm wrong, but like, what was good about that was that like a lot of people roasted her, being like, "This is not the way you should act." Like, and this is what happens when someone has too much money and goes to an art school, and it was completely right.
Like, that came from a very affluent background and was sort of like cosplaying working class. Which there are a lot of people who do that at art school.
Yeah, like I'm like Hannah. I was lucky enough I didn't have to take a loan out for my fees. I had my parents pay for them, but I was very aware going into Camberwell that it's a very different area from where I grew up, and I think it's very obvious that the art college doesn't try to really integrate itself into its area. And I mean, I really loved Camberwell as an area as a whole. Like, I would love to live there again, because of but not. I wouldn't want it to be gentrified or changed to be more from like my middle class background. And it would have been nice. Like, I think the population of the art school itself didn't reflect where it physically is as a place. It very much felt like it was like, I don't know, like it's like it's Vatican City of art in the middle of South London.
It was hard not to feel like, oh, am I one of the parasites? You know, am I guess I am contributing to the gentrification of this area, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it would have been nice to have been able to integrate whatever the college is doing with the local community if it did like events or something.
Because like if we were doing events, there were places that were already like well established or had something to do with the school and not in like where it felt
sideshow.
Yeah,
like that parade in second year.
Yeah,
that was fun. Like, also, like you felt very aware.
It was very art school.
Yeah.
Like sticking out like a sore thumb, walking through Peckham, just.
I think it would have been, it would have been so easy to, like, you know, promote the area and try to like create a positive boom of not just like, you know, middle class, upper class celebrated. Like, I feel like we could have been so much more involved with the community to like help them with whatever privileges that we had. But, you know, you only don't care.
The only thing I can think of, and I think it was going back to that project we were talking about, like the one where you could go with the BBC or the PACE or whatever. One of the pathways on that, or the one I think it's the same project, it's one I did, the pathway I took in that was, there was, again, more library talk. New Camberwell Green Library.
Oh yeah, the stained glass one, wasn't it?
Wanted us to like make a sort of like glass kind of mural thing, and that was probably the only thing that comes to mind. Like that it was actually like meant to be embedded in the area around it. Like there was the project in second year about like what was it, researching a part of South London.
But that felt very
like historical.
Yeah, I didn't feel connected to. It didn't feel like we had to like engage. It felt like, I don't know, it felt like very from the outside looking in, just sort of, you know, we were all given like specific areas or like locations around the area, and we had to kind of do a bit of research on that. But that was
kind of like, I think maybe if they kind of forced, not forced.
I think they could have pushed us out of our comfort zones a little bit more.
To do something that was more directly involved in the local community. It also would have brought a lot of the students from more affluent backgrounds. Hopefully, it could have maybe brought them a bit more down to earth, but they never got that opportunity. I'm not saying like not to redeem people who were not pleasant, but like it could have had a positive effect on people to maybe change how they think about where they are and what their art can do for other people.
I think art and the work you make from it isn't just the end product, it's the research you do or the where you put yourself to create. So if those projects are a bit more like let's get, you know, what is around here. We're not just a school that happens to be in this area, but we're here because this area there's so much to see and do and experience and also learn. Like, I don't know, but yeah, it did feel just like you're here. Oh, there's town shops. That's like we did in foundation year. Yeah. There was like an outing. So this is what I'm thinking about. What projects we had?
Expedition, wasn't it?
Yes.
Explore.
Yes. So when you were about the idea that we just felt like we were visiting or we were just there to observe, that came to mind in foundation year. One of the projects we had was to go and explore, and very specific ones that were like pre-decided or whatever, to go visit certain shops, like discount shops or whatever, and buy something and make something with it. And I think that was like the only time it was like that.
So I feel like one of the biggest skills you need to learn as an artist is to engage with the culture around you. You know, like I would have loved if there was like more briefs that like pushed us to talk to people, you know, to get to know them, know their stories, and sort of like understand the actual like place we were making work about, or the people we were making work about. It always felt like when we were making work about places, we were doing it through this pane of glass.
Like it was basically like voyeurism.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it was kind of, you know, going on a field trip to like, oh, different culture from ours kind of thing.
I think perhaps we should have been approaching it more like actual sort of journalists. Like it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole like field in itself of an illustration kind of reportage, which we did kind of look into, but like I think it would have been a lot.
Oh yeah, we did have a reportage project. I can't remember what
but it never quite dug beneath the surface.
No.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the like, in a general point, like that's one of the great things about that course is that you could go from like 1 week doing something that was sort of like a story, and the next week being a scientist, and it really like to an extent it did encourage you to like put on a lot of different like, you know, hats.
Yeah.
And it could change from week to week, but I don't know if it.
Well, because it's so brief, you don't get to
so
go that.
It's difficult.
I definitely think like those 3 years before the foundation went so fast, and each time when I look back on it, I am like, I wish I was able to like focus a bit more on this aspect of that project, and like, you know, I think the whole idea is obviously so that you can pick apart what you enjoyed and what process that really worked for you, and try and like create your own way of working. And I think that's the whole point. But because of the time constraints, it's so quick. Like you're saying, it's just kind of that you're on the surface level. You just observe stuff, and then you don't really have time to really get to grips with what it is that you want your work to communicate. It's, you know, art in all its forms is to communicate something. And the way that we're saying, like, we weren't very political, we weren't able to, we didn't really have that kind of political voice, and we didn't feel, I don't think that was on my radar at the time.
No.
Got deadlines, got this to do, and which is so odd because in my mind I'm like art students as well equals to be very vocal, and yeah, like.
And again, maybe if the course's sort of like remit wasn't so huge and it narrowed itself down a bit, it would be easier to do these things because more time can be invested in working in a certain way.
Oh, I guess it would be good to talk about like what you did after university, and like how the sort of like struggles of balancing that with like just surviving.
Yeah.
I'm still living at home, which isn't ideal, but I've also had bad health pretty much consistently, so it's been like the option of getting a job, a quote-unquote normal job, isn't outside of art, isn't really an option for me, just because I wouldn't physically have the stamina to do it. So it's more about kind of biding my time, slowly getting my art to a point where it can sustain me. And I am getting there. I had like a couple of internships and that kind of thing. And then some other jobs that sort of started going somewhere and then didn't pan out. So it's a bit of a combination of bad luck and stuff. But so yeah, I mean, my situation is kind of different maybe to other people's who could at least get a job doing something else a bit more proactive on top of their art to at least survive on their own. But I mean, again, it depends on where you want to live in that, because you know, rent is expensive.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. Like, I mean, I had a slightly similar situation where I was really quite ill by third year, and once it finished, like jobs and money aside, I just needed to like, get better, and I spent I don't know, like the whole of 2016, like just getting like people So that kind of idea of springing into like loads of things, and it wasn't just being physically burnt out and ill; it was also just being I'm sure you guys would agree. There's like totally like mentally burnt out and like made creative work, found it so like hard to get back into it for a while. Came back, obviously. I mean, I was okay because I was doing a job, a Saturday job, whilst I was at throughout foundation and uni. I kept doing that, and then I think very slowly over time, I kind of like merged my two backgrounds. At the time of working in the library and having gone to art school, fortunate that the art school also is a place that had libraries, and merged those two things together. But the first year was really rough. Trying to be functioning like physically. And the thing is, it's like really bad in third year, but like the kind of like the speed of it all, the ferociousness of the work that you're making. I don't think I actually really sat back and let it sink in, but I really should have taken it easier.
Yeah, it was really intense.
Summer 2015. And it's weird because you go back home as well after spending 3 years being away from home for the first time.
Adjustment is rough.
It is very rough. Yeah. Yeah, I found that last like 5 months ago really horrible. It was super stressful.
Yeah.
On what we did with that.
What did you do after?
Oh right, yeah. But this is the thing that like all kind of worked out in a way. Like I work for UAL now. I'm back at Camberwell.
I never left.
Like this flat. But like I'm happy to be back there. It's interesting. Like one of the main things I like about working in the library again is that being in an art school environment is just quite fun. Like it's an interesting place. It's not like most kind of workspaces where it is creative, things are happening all the time. I really miss that. Like when you finished in 2015, very abrupt. You've been with people that liked you, that like creating, and it just stopped. And I missed that for a good few years. So I'm happy to be, back in that kind of and seeing familiar faces in a familiar place. Like lots of things have changed at Campbell since we left, but in some ways things it's good things have stayed the same. So in a way, it's kind of all right.
Yeah, like it was nice. Like whatever opportunities we had to like go back to uni and like see other people's work and then see familiar faces, like that was always quite nice.
Yeah.
Like it still sticks with me how like one of my favorite tutors, who's a bit weird, I suppose, like he saw me and he was like, "Oh, you look so much better than how you draw yourself. I'm so happy for you." I'm like, "That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me."
Yeah, he's good. Yeah.
But how are things with you, Nana?
Well, like Joe was mentioning, that last year of uni really like tests your like you become mentally and emotionally and physically very tired after third year, and I've always been I needed to work on it, like very insecure about my artwork, and like I always had imposter syndrome throughout my time at UAL, because I always just felt like I'm fulfilling a very small quota. I'm a minority and a home student. There's not many of us, especially in arts. And, like, again, this has nothing to do with anything, but like I had a tutor come up to me and be like, "How come your English is so good? Like, where did you learn it?" Like, it's that level. Like, I was just like, I learned it down the road. I just felt very like, I was there because I was there to fulfill a percentage. And so that feeling never really went away, because the quality of work I was making wasn't my best because we were either experimenting with stuff we weren't familiar with or the time constraints. I'm awful with time. I'm still awful with time. I hate deadlines. I don't know what they mean. And so everything I was submitting, I always felt like they were lacking. And so after uni, I didn't really have the confidence to even think about pursuing art in any.
From an external point of view, knowing you, I think things like doing projects and doing them with deadlines, like I think you've gotten so much better with that, and I think it's because you went to art school, if you have actually got that.
Character
I think you have improved. Like, I remember foundation, and didn't you hand in your final major thing late or something? I remember there being like a big drama.
Hey! Okay, so my overall, my foundation portfolio that I submitted to get into uni. My tutor who knew me for a while was like, it was organized chaos, and that was all she said about my portfolio. Like, yes, organized chaos. I still got a place, so I got that kind of feedback, and I felt like I'm not meant to be here, but I'm here. And that never left. But yeah, no, you're right. I did, like we were saying earlier, I don't regret going to the university because I did learn things. I wasn't actively learning things. Like, I wasn't like, yes, now I do this. But I have learned some tools, which only get better through using them again and again and again. So after uni, to get back to the question, after uni, I went back home to my parents, which was, they're lovely, but it is rough. There's power dynamics, and there's kind of like things you want to do which they're not really understanding, and they're coming from somewhere very completely different. That, you know, they're just kind of like, why are you working in art now? And you're like, ha ha ha, it's so funny. And there was all these things because I was just so drained. How can you, after 3 years of a hardcore marathon, go find a job like that? You know what I mean? So, luckily, like, my friend was just like, you know, you could just work at a restaurant with me. And I was like, man, what I really want now is to work, but with just to have fun and just to like distract myself a bit, have a bit more finance, like money, so I can feel a bit more comfortable. Because at that point, I didn't have any savings, you know, and money is important. If you know, I love my parents, but I don't want to live with them forever, so that's a big factor. So I was working in a restaurant for a while, and at one point I was taking apart. It was a Japanese restaurant, and I was meant to be just a waitress, but I ended up in the kitchen, and I was taking apart like a big tuna, and I was like, oh no, I was taking apart a salmon, and I was just like, we've gone too far now. It's very easy to get distracted, right? I was like, oh, I don't want to become
arm deep in a fish to realise.
Yeah. Oh no, I don't want to be a sushi chef. Like, you need a license for that, and you know, that's not like, I like the part-time job aspect because it meant you were more flexible with your time, and that's how I like tricked myself. I was always like, it's cool. This isn't what you're going to do for life. You know, while you're kind of meandering doing these part-time jobs, you can do that drawing, and you can do this, and you can go to that con, and this and that. But I wasn't doing that. I was just working overtime because you feel responsible, and you're like, okay, I've got to do this, got to do that. So that continued for about, I blinked, and I think 2 years went by, and I hadn't done anything art-related, and it was getting me really sad. But then, yeah, I slowly like started doing drawing again. Me and Tiff did MCM. And just like stuff, like events gave me a deadline. It gave me like a frame of that environment again, like at uni, where it's like, this is your time frame, this is a project you want to do, and these are the outcomes that you wish to create. And that kind of format encouraged me to do more, because I had an aim.
Yeah. That framework you have of the way that the project is done and done time to agree. That's super useful.
Yeah.
And you need to keep that mentality when you're out of that environment. And that's the difficulty time.
Yeah.
You have to like, keep doing it.
Because we've talked about that often, like after uni, there's no briefs anymore. There's no There's no what do you call it? Where you have a group and you talk about your crits.
Crits.
No crits. There's no deadlines. There's no. This is the theme. There's no drive, so it has to come from you. So yeah, like events, conventions, and places where you're going to showcase your work were great for me to like. I'd be awful with those deadlines too. The amount of times Tiff would be like, "I'm sleepy," and it's the night before the night.
Oh man, you cutting out stickers at like
cutting stuff
12
out
a.m.
and printing stuff. I'm like, "Chief, I'm so sorry," and it's still like doing right, like exactly like it was at uni. I remember at uni, I was like at your place using your printer, being like, "Tiff, I'm nearly done. I'm nearly done." So maybe that's what I need in my life. But yeah, so, yeah, I'm now, ironically, doing like lots of social media work for small businesses and like helping their content creation and all that stuff, despite not knowing what social media was when I was at uni. I was just like, so what is this Twitter are you talking about? So yeah, those jobs have creative elements within them. They're not like stuff I would do off the bat. It's like listening to clients and being like, oh, your aesthetic, your mood board is this. Okay, I can be creative at this point without you telling me what to do, but I think also this work is in line with it. So I'm doing more of my own stuff and balancing it with doing stuff for other people, because doing stuff for other people is a more safe income. And I'm not very good at the moment to like sell my art or work or commission stuff, because I'm not actively doing it. I'm working up to it, but so it's that balance of, if I was just doing, this work for other people, I would be pretty drained and kind of unfulfilled. But I'm able to, those are mostly kind of part-timey, so I have some flexibility to get on with my own stuff. And we moved out, and so I'm not living with my parents anymore. So obviously, it works to some point. There is a fine balance, of like, oh, I did want to work on my personal projects, but I really need to work on these other things. It's more time consuming, and trying to not be too kind of agitated when you can't work solidly on your own projects. Is that clear?
Hannah, it'd be good to know how you dealt with after uni.
I mean, I feel like you and I
our story is definitely intertwined.
Yeah, it's intertwined, but I think like it wasn't really burnout, but like I think spring when we were on the year we were graduating, like I got severely depressed because like I had the pressure of like needing to find jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
Or like finding ways
leaving the country soon.
Yeah, so like, and not to get too personal, but like first ever relationship and stuff like that had affected me a lot as well. So I was like, oh, I need to sort myself out, but in the end it didn't work out, which is fine. Not really, but it's the way it is.
It's not fine.
It's not fine. But it's the way it is for now, at least. Yeah. So yeah, we graduated, and then 3 months after I had to go back, and I couldn't really do a lot of work around that time, I think at least to like spring to 2016, because like of depression, also like a lot of family matters was going on at the same time. But yeah, I slowly recovered from that, and like I took some commissions, like from connections from my dad, which I was super grateful for. But I kind of wanted to start something on my own, or like at least get a part-time job first. I worked at a gallery for 1.5 years, which I just decided to not go into work anymore because I wasn't really sure if my workplace was still going to be there the next day. So I just quit technically. But yeah, after that, I think, and also while doing all of this, we're like working on No Longer Home as well. So there were like plenty of events to show that too. So I would like occasionally go back to the UK and like show the game, and then like do more dev work with Cell. But once the gallery stuff was done, again, like, privileged enough to have connections to like art world stuff. So like my sister, or the company that my sister works at, would like commission me to do illustrations and like help me out with filming and things like that. I would help them out with filming. So like I can't really say I'm super established just yet, but like it
You
has
released
been
the game a week ago or so.
Yes, I did. Yes, I was gonna get into that. So I think like it sort of feels like I'm just starting. That's the thing. Like it was only maybe like probably last year, maybe 2019, that I started to get more sort of stable freelance work. And obviously, like I've not moved out of my parents' house yet, so you know, not ideal for anyone really. But I think, you know, it has been years since graduation, but like it's sort of starting to feel like it's kicking off. And I have more things to put in my portfolio, so if I were to look for a job in the UK, it's more likely than it was before. So I feel like I'm going on the right track. It did take time, and like these things do take time, and it also like takes a mental toll on you, obviously. And there's the whole like dynamic of being a foreigner, or like not a white person, you know, middle class, but like with disadvantages, I suppose. So, you know, trying to use what I can, all the resources that I can to get to places I want. And yeah, I don't know how close I am now, but it's getting there, I think.
I think you're definitely getting there now.
Yeah. But how about you, Sal?
Because we launched into making No Longer Home like 29 as it was known at the time, pretty much straight after the graduation.
Yeah.
And anyone who's followed the development will know how spotty it's been in the 6 years since we started. Yeah, I when I moved back into my parents, literally the day I moved back in, my mum was like, "You're going to the job centre next week," and like I still had another trip to go back and get like more furniture and stuff for my flat. So it was a bit like, whoa, can we slow down a little bit? And yeah, I was on job seekers for not for that long actually, like for about a week or something, and that was awful. It was really degrading. But I did work experience, basically free labor at a local shop, and then I got a job there, and it was really horrible. I hated it. I worked there for about 8-9 months, and it's just with those kinds of jobs, it's hard to manage to build up any savings because you're earning so little, and the energy you put into it, it just doesn't come through in like monetary value. Like I was working really early hours, and I was working more than 8 hours, but I was on an 8-hour contract, and some weeks I would just get 8 hours. And like I was one of the lucky ones because other people had like 4-hour contracts, which is ridiculous. But yeah, after 8 or 9 months, I quit by shouting at my boss. I got so angry with him with like timetabling stuff, and it was impossible to balance creative work alongside that.
Yeah.
And I think there was all that like pent up frustration from that kind of came out of my boss. He deserved it, honestly, but
must have been like super cathartic as well.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, like since then, like I was very fortunate that my parents like would support me after I quit. It was, you know, I got a very small amount of money from them, but it was enough to like keep going and working on the game, which I don't like. I'd say I wouldn't recommend anyone else really do, because it's not. I don't know. It's a bit of a gamble. We'll see. We'll see in a few months when the game comes out, and hopefully people will really enjoy it. But it's always been a bit like, oh, am I actually doing the right thing by working on this? Shouldn't I maybe be following another avenue and, like, I don't know, attacking things more directly? It's difficult to know what you're supposed to do after graduating.
Yeah, and it's like the fact that it takes so much time to realize whether you're on the right track or not. If you even if you are, like, you know, lucky to realize that as well, like, because there were, like, you know, months or maybe like a year of me not doing anything because I was, like, too depressed to do anything. So it's just kind of like, I feel like I'm in a much better place now, which is really good. But it was like, that was with the help of everyone else, and I definitely would have not been able to do it on my own. And I think, like Nana was saying, like, we, you know, learned how to manage your time better, and, like, maybe I would like to say I'm better. I'm not sure, you know. So
You're better, yeah.
I'll
give you that.
But yeah, like, that's the thing, like, because you can't really see that improvement for yourself, so you have to, like, rely on those to, like, gauge how better you are doing. And I think, like, as far as I can tell, like, you know, everyone here at least seems to be in a much better place now.
I think once you do graduate, you lose that community that you've had for, like, the last 3-4 years, and that's a big change, and it feels really lonely.
Because it's kind of like going back to university for the first time, right? Like, you're dumped into this environment that you've never been in before, and you have to, like, start all relationships from the ground up. And then you graduate and you're back in your original community, but with no one left because everyone's already dispersed. So it's like having to build that again from the ground up once again. It's just like, it's grueling and it's exhausting. And, like, you know, there's a lot of people that I used to speak to before uni, but, like, I don't speak to them anymore because, like, we are going completely different ways, and that can feel quite lonely too. But it's like, knowing the right people is always just, like, not just in terms of connections, but, like, you know, emotional connections, interpersonal relationships was really important, I think.
Yeah.
Friends are good, basically.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was just going to say, like, I definitely think, you know, one of the big things from, like, going to university was, like, getting to meet all these people, you know, and, like, yeah, like you know, I'm still in touch with you all, and it's nice that those friendships have persevered, and, like, I don't know, if I didn't go to university, no longer home would have never been made, but yeah, I don't know where it's going.
No, like, but, you know, as jokey as it is, like, I feel like our experience with the university was very much like, oh, it was all about the friends we made along the way, because, like, you know, we bounce off each other constantly, and, like, or, you know, we have bounced off each other constantly, and, you know, we still hang out, and, like, you know, we play not TPD, god, what's the tabletop? D&D. You like look for like-minded people, right? Because, like, again, you're put into an environment that you've never been in before, and you're scared of everyone, so you try to find people who are kind of like you or, like, share similar traits, and then you sort of, like, foster a friendship, and then your friendship grows, and your friend group starts growing. So it's kind of like that sort of, you know, it's stuff that we've done in, like, elementary school and stuff, but, like, kind of relearning that skill, because it is a skill, like, at the end of the day.
I think because you're away from home, so, like, I guess when, like, you're going to school or something and you're making new friends, you still kind of have that scrutiny of your family and that environment you grew up in, and you're still kind of local being at school usually, unless you're going to school, like boarding school or something somewhere. But, like, university, you're so away from it all that, like you can kind of maybe find more about, sounds a bit philosophical, but more about yourself a bit more. Or I think it's definitely a period of growth for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Especially if you've moved out, like you have to figure out how to live by yourself, and you have to. It's a completely different rhythm. I think that's why you were talking about Hannah earlier. The fact that when you finish uni and you go back to your original kind of like community of friends, there's a kind of disconnect almost because you've gone 3 years or more following a completely different path. There's no template like after uni of how to get from here to there with a proper job and money and stuff. There's no template, but throughout like primary school, secondary school, whatever, there's always been you and your peers have always been following the same rhythm. And suddenly, when you go to uni, you're figuring stuff out for yourself. You're really having to sort out, who you are in a sense. I mean, I think you're always trying to figure out who you are, but it's the first time it becomes a priority. Before then, it's more like what's happening at school and what is everyone else doing? And then at uni, it's a bit more. I think there's more stress about what is it that you wish to do. And,
making more of your own decisions.
Yeah. Terrifying, but what do you call it? Not a hot pot. What do you call it?
Melting pot?
No, like a pressure cooker. Like the other one.
Oh, what?
like a pressure cooker where it's like all happening at once, so you're so overstimulated. You got to do everything, and then to go back to your original community is
a bit of a weird stagnation.
Yeah, it feels very regressive.
So I think like one thing I did notice, like looking back at university, is like it was a place where I can very openly talk about things that I like and enjoy. Because like if you look back, or I don't know if this is my own personal like experience and not a universal thing, but like if you look back at like friendships from high school or sixth form or whatever, like the way you communicated with people was quite like there was a template to it, and like Nana was saying, it was like what's going on in school, blah blah blah, and it's like it's not. I'm not saying like you can't foster good relationships with people while you're in that age, but there was not a lot of like mutual respect for each other in terms of what people are like and what they enjoy. So I think like having that sort of platform where you are able to talk about these things and like not be scrutinized for it was really big for me, at least. And it's like because a lot of the people I did hang out with back in the day were like quote unquote quite normcore, like I would and like I would talk about
quirky.
Artsy.
We banned that word.
So like the thing I did really appreciate was that like I would talk about some obscure artist or like some thing that people don't really know about, and the reaction I get was like, oh, that sounds really interesting, I'm gonna look it up, instead of like, oh, you're so artsy, quirky, like whatever. It's like you're the Hannah world, blah blah blah.
Oh, they're the arty one. Brushed aside.
So I think like that really helped build confidence, and again like skills to talk to one another and like try to be better people, I suppose, and trying to respect people's like opinions and like likings and stuff like that. Yeah, I think it was a good lesson learned, I would say, university.
Yeah, I definitely think like a lot of the bigger lessons were just kind of like life lessons outside of education itself. But I was wondering if you have any like sort of standout things that you feel like you learned from going to art school.
I mean, I think styles don't matter that much, maybe, for me. I think like,
how important it is to do what you like.
Yeah.
Like, I think if you make the work you want to make, that will be reflected in the quality of the work, and you'll be more keen to actually do more of it, and it will come out better. And I think I put this in like my final like review. I can't remember what it was called, but like when we had to self-reflect basically at the end of the course, and I think I kind of put a snarky comment in saying like it was useful to do all the experimentation to realise that I liked what I was doing originally. Because like I got to the point where it's just like I'm just trying some of these suggestions that I was told to do and not enjoying it, and the result was the value of it was I realised how much I really liked what I was kind of interested in the first place. Like I think you have to find something you care about and go for it, otherwise people will see that you didn't care and then it will just come out rubbish at the end of the day. And I think I know for me especially, like I have chronic illnesses, I can't really afford to waste time, not to be like doom and gloom, I'm not gonna die or anything, but I have limited energy, so I can't really like afford to waste the time I do have where I have energy doing stuff I don't really want to be doing. Like I have to time my work well, so I might as well enjoy myself when I can afford to, or at least tolerate what I'm doing. I think that's probably my biggest takeaway. And just the time management stuff, like that has helped a lot. I think my artistic, I mean I was okay with time anyway mostly, but I think my workflow still kind of reflects my art school experience. It's definitely a lot more, I definitely think in a certain way, like, oh, I've got to do this, this, and this in this order to, even on my personal project. I'll kind of still split it up and then consider things, and like even with small things, like I still put drawings on the wall, like to look at them all, like we did in art school, which is a very small thing, but it does actually really help kind of seal your work. I think that's probably one of the biggest takeaways. Just kind of be yourself, as naff as that sounds.
But like, it's easy to say those things.
Yeah.
Once you've experienced it for yourself, you're like, oh, that's what that means, and it actually, it is very important. And then you can kind of have a clear idea of what is important to you to prioritize.
Yeah.
Because drawing something you like might be less of a priority for someone else because they, want to prioritize something else. So it's important for you that you.
Yeah. I think sort your priorities out, which is very important, and try not to compare yourself to other people too much. And I think that's probably one way, of course, being so kind of eclectic and who it took on, you couldn't really compare yourself to many other people because they were so different to you in their practice anyway. Like if someone's over there making like, I don't know, like pots or something, like how can I even begin to compare my own drawings to whatever they're doing? Like there's no way to, that progress is no way comparable. And I think that's good to remember, especially now with like the online art community and social media and stuff is very competitive, and there's a lot of like putting yourself down, or like a lot of imposter syndrome things kind of going on, and people think that if they're not successful by as soon as they graduate university, if they go at all, then it's not worth it. And I think you need to kind of realize you have to take your time.
I think we all have this sort of urgency that we have to get everything done in our 20s, and we're all very close to being 30 now, which is extremely scary. And like,
there is actually the pressure to do it, because you need money to survive, right?
As was it the Snyder Cut trailer? We live in a society. That's probably it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. Like one thing for me, like from the course, I did genuinely enjoy. I thought some of the academic stuff, the theory side stuff, I found really interesting. and I don't think I would have been exposed to it had I not gone to university.
Yeah.
And I really loved that side. I thought the academic side of the course was really excellent. I know a lot of people had like grumbles to do, like I'm here to draw, not to write, kind of thing. But I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I really liked it.
And the skills picked up in like how to research for your essays, for your dissertations, I think have been super useful.
Mm-hmm.
For me, like art school might not necessarily like change the way that I draw, like because I was quite stubborn. Like this is how I draw. I'm going to draw like this forever, and then probably be like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it like changed me in that way, but the kind of more academic side of things perhaps helped me deciding what I was interested in looking at and researching and drawing from. The research side of it, I think, was very useful.
Yeah.
Because I spent so much time doing research and stuff for my dissertation, like probably way more than we probably had to. But I did it because it was fun and it was an interesting way of working, combining a deep kind of research-based kind of historical side of things, just practical drawing. And I don't think I would have done that, like, had I not gone through my education. I'd still be obviously like interested in things and look into them, but I think it definitely like enabled me to research things more quickly.
I think it kind of demystified academia a bit. Like it made it seem less of like a thing that sort of brain boxes do in like Oxford and Cambridge kind of thing. Like how I think it made it clear that there's a relevance to that in other disciplines.
Yeah, I think it was so important. Like, I know a lot of people kind of grumbled about it.
Yeah, people were like, I don't want to write, I don't think I need to do that. And it's like,
like it was so important to the illustration. Illustration is all about taking in information and processing it and then putting it out again in a way that's understandable. So you have to be interested in it. And I thought the academic side of it was really excellent.
Yeah, I found like the academic side. I don't know. I was really interested in it at the time, but I found it very difficult. But like on reflection, I really appreciate having those skills now. Like I found that they've been really helpful, and they've been like over the last like year, I've been doing a lot more reading, like specifically for No Longer Home. To like, I don't know. I think those sort of like critical analysis kind of skills have really helped with that.
Yep. And yeah, again, I think, of course, everyone's able to do that on their own, or their own steam, but like I definitely think it helps to do that in a way that other places do.
Yeah.
Especially like, again, actually it's funny, like if you're coming straight out of A-level or whatever, you're already in that kind of like school mentality. I think you do it right off the bat, then start school, so you have to like easy to get into it. I would say though, on the academic thing, I did think there were elements of it, like the practice side, where they kind of just assumed that you knew how to do it. Like, I thought, this is going on a bit of a tangent, but I thought with the dissertation, it's sort of like, we just kind of expect you to know how to write academically. Like,
I felt it was great up until the dissertation, and then it was a letdown, depending on who your dissertation person was, basically. So it was kind of luck of the draw. Not many names.
It's such a like, for a lot of people, it's such a like jump, really like alien and difficult, and so many of like the cohort will have like dyslexia or learning like challenges like that, and it's difficult, and I just kind of think, especially for dissertation, you're just kind of thrown in the deep end.
Yeah.
Again, it's that thing about practical skills. They didn't teach that. So I can understand what emphasis, people that were like, you're expecting to write this, but they don't know how, kind of thing, which I think is really difficult.
My big takeaway from uni is like you that time was very unique. Like 3 years plus of just being very self-indulgent and being able to reflect on like what work you like to do, what you're doing, how you're doing it, and like the importance of process. When I'm a hoarder, so I have like paint, watercolors, like paint, marker pens, crayons. I have all the art supplies. So I'm like, what should I use today? And just that fluidity of like, you don't have to be rigid and just stick to one medium. You can use them all. You can use them all on one page. Like it's fine. And that's that kind of freedom or that kind of confidence. I think comes from being able to have spent 3 years basically just focusing on art. Like after you don't have that time as much because, like we were saying, there's a balance of trying to have income, part-time jobs, and all this other things. So like I really learned the kind of importance of you don't always have to have a final polished finished product. It's okay to really be in that space of just process of just working on something and just kind of like you don't have to be happy with your work always because you're working towards something. It's just kind of like nothing's ever going to be perfect and that's fine, and just being like, forgive yourself for like it's a process, it's fine. And I think I wouldn't have necessarily learned that if I hadn't gone to uni, because prior to that in sixth form A level it was kind of like the sketchbook has to be like beautiful, and your finished product has to be like just pristine. And I don't know, it just feels like I'm a bit less focused on what the final product has to look like. It's more like my aim was to have a A4 risograph print. I haven't really decided what that's going to be, and then like enjoying kind of playing around with stuff. I think that's it. Just like because I'm not good with time, so it's okay. It's just like, okay, well, it's not finished today. That's fine. Like we'll just figure it out tomorrow. So, don't worry about it. I don't know. Maybe that's not the best thing to have learned. I'm just like maybe I'll try it again with a different kind of like maybe I'll do more collage or not being so rigid or hard on myself, because other people might be looking at your work with a different lens, so you can't second guess what you're doing. Like, so what I'm trying to say is you don't have to make work that's gonna make other people happy. Like Tiff was saying, just sort of, kind of make work that you're happy with. And that might not always be quick, and that's okay. It's okay to take time. That's what I'm trying to say.
So, what was your takeaway?
I think, like, weirdly, I think, like, being able to experiment again, like, even though, like, the course kind of, it allowed for it, but it also, like, the tutors didn't really know how to handle, when I started making video games as part of the course. They're like, well, I guess you're allowed to do that. Like, they're happy about it, but they didn't quite know how to critique it. So, like, I'm glad I had the space to do that. But I feel like the tutors didn't quite know how to handle that, and I don't think that's their fault. Like, it's an illustration course. I think it was quite like left field of me. But and like it might seem odd to go into making games, but I think like the way Hannah and I approach making games is very much informed by like that kind of creative process we went through in art school. Like, I don't know. I think if I went on a game design course, I'd make games very differently. And like the way I make games definitely feels like an extension of my illustration. like I think just like the subject of like what I'm making is about, you know, like they're mostly like sort of autobiographical in a way, and like that's the way my illustrations generally been. I think that's probably like, I don't know, it's informed my current practice a lot. How about you, Hannah?
Well, I mentioned very briefly at the beginning, but for me, it was the fact that like art styles don't super matter, or like they do, but like I think I learned that I don't have to stick to one particular thing, and it's like, you know, what Nana said about like using different mediums, and for me, it's more kind of like experimenting with different ways of drawing, I suppose, like because I mainly draw with my iPad, but it's about like using different brushes and like things I'm not really confident in, because you know I'm only pleasing myself, and if people seem to like what I'm drawing, then you know that's cool. Obviously, in terms of like commissioned work, I have to stick to very specific briefs and stuff, but I feel like that was made possible because I did experiment a lot in university. That made me feel more comfortable, like stepping out of my comfort zone and trying to like think of different styles to appease very specific people, I guess. And like the commissions I've been taking are super varied. Like some are very like graphic designs, some are even like physical things. Like I made like a playground made of cardboard a while back, and that
cool.
you know I've never done before. So, and that was like with the help of my dad as well. But like I feel like if I didn't really have that confidence to not confidence to like step out of my comfort zone, then that wouldn't really have been my project, I suppose, and that would have been like my dad's project if anything. And even for like the game that was released recently, Before Your Eyes, like that was made possible because I was doing work on No Longer Home, which was already like a huge step for me because I didn't know how to model anything at one point, obviously. So like that huge step I took into doing 3D art ended up being like a really good thing in the end, and you know, like the game's doing really well, and oh, my name is out there, whoa, whatever. So yeah, I think like yeah, basically what Nana said, just like trying out different things without being scared was really, really good. And you know, everyone's trying as well. Like everyone's trying to do things and like get by, and for that they have to not stick to their usual art style. That's totally fine, and if anything, that's interesting, I think. So yeah, I guess that's my takeaway.
I guess just to wrap it up, I mean,
it's a difficult
question to answer, but do we feel like art school was worth it?
Wow.
Big answer.
Everyone?
Big answer, yes, I think, for me.
Yeah.
But not for the reasons that people would think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was thinking that as well. It's like overall, yes, but not for the reasons you're expecting.
Yes.
Like,
No.
of where you're not gonna. We didn't get from it what we thought we were going to. If that makes sense. Like, yeah. So.
Yeah, I think kind of a caveat of like, I say yes, but I realise I can only say yes because I'm kind of privileged in certain respects, and a lot of people wouldn't be able to go through the expense and stuff of art school to get that same thing, and it wouldn't be viable for them. And I realise that part of it, which is a shame because it shouldn't be that way. I think everyone should have the opportunity to have that freedom to kind of gain confidence in themselves and in their practice without having to worry about getting into debt.
Yeah, so it's like a big bold yes with like no written in it, basically.
Yeah. While I don't regret it, I do feel like we were ripped off, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I think all education should be free. I don't, you know, like we've got a government that currently doesn't understand why we have all-time unemployment rates, you know, but like education costs more than it ever has.
Yeah.
Like of
like, you
course,
know,
like what do you expect?
if you can, like, if you have money to airstrike other countries, you have money to put into education.
Yeah, exactly. You have to invest in people for the people then to thrive and give back. Yeah, it's a shame that many people have, many students have felt like they can't pursue arts because of the like unsteady economic situations, you know, and the fact that exactly they can't see how that will be able to give them a stable financial lifestyle or what's it like this thing. Yeah, like again, yes, there is a lot. I also feel like I didn't help myself that much with what I could have got from uni. Is part of it. Like not the over resounding reason why I'm like maybe you know was a rip off. It's not just because of me for not being able to like clear headed and be like, this is what I want from uni. I'm gonna be a go getter. Do it. But it definitely could have helped. I could have helped myself if I was like, hey, I want to learn how to, you know, this program and that program is good for the industry. You know.
I feel like if we all did it again now, we'd definitely get a lot more out of it because of how we've grown since.
Yeah, because like we have a clear, much clearer idea of what we actually want in life, and like how much money things cost, how much money we might gain from doing specific things, and like I hate thinking in a very financial matter, but you know it matters, and as unfortunate as it is, like it's you know what we live for, kind of. So
yeah, and like because also we continue to learn, like post uni, the work that I've made after uni, I'm continuously learning. I'm you know, it's not like I could only have gotten better or learned stuff while I'm at uni, and after uni that's it. Like you're always continuously learning.
Yeah.
And so that's where you also feel like, you know, okay, then that kind of questions the worth of uni as well sometimes because you're learning, you're still learning, if not more, after uni as well. So it's
perhaps it sets you on
exactly.
Yeah. So I think like after graduating, like I feel like every year everyone's just kind of like, oh, my art plateaued, like my art from last year was good, like, or like my, you know, my uni pieces were so good, and like why am I like this? And then, you know, fast forward a couple of years, you'd be looking back at like the years where we're saying, oh, my art plateaued, and see that art and be like, oh, my art plateaued there, and then it's just like a continuation of that. So like it never stops, which is, you know, always cool and it's interesting, and like it's you're always just constantly growing, and I think like art school did help with that sort of confidence to again do different things, like I said earlier. But yeah, it was.
That's what I didn't realize. Sorry, I mean that's what I didn't realize at the time. I didn't think. I thought that was it. Like I'm a finished product now. I'm in the third year. I've made it. I made illustration now, and that's it. And I think you completely forget. You have the rest of your life ahead of you. You're gonna keep learning things in that time. It's not the plateau of your kind of like existence since created. It's like at the third year. Now I've done it.
It's kind of more like, okay, now you have a groundwork, you have a foundation, you've kind of sussed out a bit more about how you want to work, what you want to work on, or, you know, what you are already comfortable with, what you want to learn more about. And because you've had that 3 years of going to uni, you have a bit more kind of like confidence to carry on pursuing it and carry on trying practicing and carry on trying to get better at it. Because if you think like that, maybe you wouldn't feel as like the kind of I'll stick with this attitude.
Yeah, like uni, I think now that we think back, it kind of felt more like a prologue more than anything.
Yeah.
in terms of like career stuff, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it is difficult though, because you see other people who seem to not struggle and just kind of get on with it. But as you go on, you realize just how much like privilege they've had. Like you're like, oh, actually, this person had a parent that works in the industry, has this connection. That's why they got all this work. Like, I think if you're graduating now and you're really frustrated that like you're not getting work, that's okay. Like that's very normal.
Yeah, and I think there's also a lot of invisible struggles. Like people who are in uni right now might be looking up to us, being like, "Oh, I want to produce work like them." Like they seem so established, and we would think the same for other people, but like we don't know their situation at all. And I think you don't have to be ashamed of whatever situation you are in. Like, as hard as that is, because, like, I'm constantly ashamed of still my parents being 28 years old, but, like, that's just how it is currently, and that's sort of the path I've decided for myself, so it's just a matter of trucking on, I suppose.
It's easy to be hard on yourself, and easy to compare yourself to others, but ultimately, like, that's not helpful.
No.
It doesn't serve you, and, like, if it's going to motivate you, then I guess fine, but it's not a healthy motivation. Like, to be like, I need to be better than that person, or I'm not good right now, so I need to. It's a motivation for a short while, but it doesn't carry you through.
I think just like a quick thing to sum it up, I think like I would recommend art school. I would also say that it's not the only way you can learn those things. And that if you want to do it, I would spend a lot of the time researching about courses and like speaking, if you can, speaking to people who have been on the courses, because then they'll know the best about what the course is like.
Yeah, I think don't like blindly jump into it. I think it would be super good if you can actually physically go to the university before just making a decision, and again, like talking to everyone on the course, and not just like the tutors who are taking you around, like try to talk to the students there and get more of a raw reaction.
I guess to sign off, could we get your socials where we can find you in places?
I'm on Twitter at Tiff Baxter Illis, which is really annoying because I couldn't just get my name.
I'll put it all up on the screen and stuff.
And the same on Instagram. And Tumblr is just Tiff Baxter.
I'm on Instagram as Nana sometimes draws.
I'm also on Instagram.
Why are you saying that like you've never read your name?
I don't normally
I'm at Sel Davison on Twitter and Sel.Davison on Instagram, I think it is.
My one is at Bonaneh, Bonaneh, because I couldn't get banana or Hannah Banana, anything adjacent to that, on Twitter and Tumblr and Instagram. Not Tumblr. I don't use that anymore. Scrap that one. just Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to follow more No Longer Home development stuff, that's at Humble Grove on Twitter. Yeah. And everything else, actually.
And also, like, go wishlist the game, like, right now.
Yes.
You're probably watching this on the Steam page, or maybe on Twitch. If you're watching on Twitch, we'll post a link in the chat, like, right now. But yeah, go wishlist the game. It'd be nice if you bought it. We'd like people to buy it.
Yeah. We can say, art school was worth it if No Longer Home.
Yeah. If you buy the game, then art school is worth it. Fund some starving artists.
An advice for all non-artists or people who didn't go to art school: just give people who went to art school some money. Like, buy their art, buy their stuff, commission them. That's the best you can do for them.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for watching.
Right. Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining as well.
Thank
Yeah.
you for
Thank you.
Thank
talking
you.
to us.
I don't think it's like too hyperbolic to say this, but in that house we were dealing with frankly like Victorian levels of squalor.
Yeah, like, you know, windows weren't double glazed, so it was so cold all the time.
It was so cold.
And then, like, it looked okay when we moved in, and then, like, you moved the bed and it revealed, like, the moss
Yeah.
tree underneath.
sent you guys a list of stuff to look out for before saying yes to a place, and then you're like, "There's moths." I'm like, "That was on the list, guys.
They were under the bed. We didn't move the bed when we went to view it.
You have to be thorough."
What are
Okay.
you talking about?
When I think about it, the only thing that
We were talking about Ferry Road.
The flat.
Okay.
the only thing that I actually gained from university are those moths from Friary Road, because
Yeah.
they followed me everywhere I've gone since. They came back home to Finchley,
We've got them here.
and now they're here.
I got some I got some in my room still. And those are definitely from Ferry Road.
But you only used that shack, let's fly, for about 3 months or 10 days of summer.
I think both Tim and Hannah will apply that. I use the shack a lot.
I saw you reading in the shack a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, that I can testify.
Yeah, when the landlord finally like arrived when we were like moving out, and he was kind of disgusted at the state of his own house. He then looked at the garden at the shack and looked at me. He didn't look at you, he looked at me and said, "You built this." And part of me was like a little bit of honour. It was like, "My God, man, I wish I'd built it." But no, like, just think, it showed how long the guy hadn't like seen
Yeah.
the people. It'd been there for a long time before we moved in. It was like, you know, like an ancient, like Neolithic ruin. You know, it was ancient.
It pissed me off because I bet you guys were paying like
Yeah,
top
probably
dollar
quite a lot.
to pay that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because like the kitchen sink was like tearing off of the wall.